Hello, Haley. Today is a big day for me.
Is.
Did you know today is a big day for me?
I do. I'm excited for today.
Today is the day before my book birthday. So I have been waiting for the past 2 years for this moment because tomorrow is release day for my book, What If I'm Wrong? And oh my goodness, this book and this journey God has brought me on is obviously where the idea for this podcast even came from. It is so, it is honestly too personal for me. Some of the things that I share in this book, I have a lot of insecurities, honestly, about people reading it. But I made a promise to the Lord when I think I was like 21 years old, maybe 22. And I said, God, if you open the door, if you allow me to write books, I will always tell the truth. Oh, it's going to make me cry. I will always tell people the truth about what it means to what my experiences are with you and what it means to follow you. And I'll tell you, when I said that at 21 or 22, I thought I was going to tell them the truth of my successes and my
Mm.
wins and my open doors and the goodness of God who owns a cattle on 1,000 hills. I thought that was the stories I was going to tell. And life, of course, has those seasons and moments, but it also has seasons of darkness, right? And um, I said this the other day on Instagram. All seed. What do you do with seed? What do you do with seed? You bury it. And your life, my friend, is seed. Your life is seed, and you will go through a season of burial. And it doesn't mean what if I'm wrong? It doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. And it doesn't mean that God is not with you. And it doesn't mean that you don't have a purpose. And it doesn't mean that God has not called you. It means that you are seed in the hand of God. And so, my goodness, this book is all about that. And actually, for the whole month of April, we're going to talk about purpose and what that looks like. What does purpose look like for a Christian that knows my life is seed? Which means it's not always reaping and harvesting. There's also rest and death and burial. What does that look like? So, man, you can pause this episode right now and pre-order the book. That would make me so happy. You could ordering it today is basically like ordering it tomorrow because it will show up the next day because it's available. Haley, actually, I'm really going to ask you this question. I'm going to put you on the spot.
Okay.
Okay, people are listening.
Okay. I feel the
Haley,
pressure.
no, you're really going to feel the pressure. You're either going to lie or you're going to tell the truth and then we're going to course correct. Haley, have you pre-ordered the book?
Oh, that's a great question. Okay, I have not. Here's the thing.
Haley!
I have the PDF,
Yes,
but
I know.
I should order the book.
Yeah. So here's what Haley's been reading it and pulling out quotes and stuff. Haley runs my Instagram. I don't know if you guys knew that, but so she's been reading it. But also, you should pre-order it,
I
Haley.
should. I'm going to do that.
When you get the book, it would be wonderful if you took a picture with it and posted it on social media. Tag me. You're tagging me. You're also tagging Haley, basically, when you tag me. And we'll share it to our story because that makes me so happy for other people to see you with the book. There is nothing. So I taught communication. You guys know this for almost 15 years. And I think we always are like looking to influencers or even like pastors to make an impact on our friends or family. And I'm telling you, this is communication research. The most influential person in like your friend's life is you. Your relationship is influential. And so you're sharing pictures of you reading the book. So you're a little influencer. Somebody's going to see that and say, hey, is it good? I mean, obviously don't share it if you don't like it. And if it's not good, then don't. But I would love for you to share this book. I'm so honestly proud of it. And I'm so excited for you guys to hear about my dad and those stories in there as well. It's funny because What If I'm Wrong is about submitting yourself before the Lord and saying, okay, what am I getting wrong? What may I be missing? how can I live this life of faith out better? And have I started to believe the lie that God can't show up in this certain area of my life anymore? God, what could I be getting wrong? And it's funny because when I felt like we needed to do a necessary ending on Viral Jesus, which, if you are new here, Viral Jesus, Haley and I were just talking about this before we hit record. Viral Jesus was my last podcast, and I was sincerely, I talk about this in the book, I was sincerely heartbroken when we ended that show because I felt like I had done all the right things as far as I put my heart into it. And I didn't even start the show without so much prayer. And then I even asked God to confirm whether we were supposed to do it, and he did. So when that show ended, I was totally heartbroken because I knew God had called me to start the show. And I had assumed that if God calls you to something, that it's going to last forever. And when I had spent time in prayer, I said, God, was I wrong? Like, did you not call me to this? Did I mix something up? What did I get wrong? And I felt very clearly the Lord say, Heather, you were faithful to the season. The season's over. And so I don't know, friend, what is in your life that you're looking at and you're like, did I get this wrong? And I just want to offer this to you. Put it on if it fits, throw it away if it's not for you. Is it possible that you were faithful to that season and God is calling you into a different one? I kept thinking that ending Viral Jesus would be failure, but it was my faithfulness in that show. And this is true. It was my faithfulness in that show that gave us this one that we're doing right now. And Annie texted me, I'll never forget it. It was like 9 months after we decided to end Viral Jesus. And it was not even on my radar to start a podcast again. I did not think I could emotionally handle starting a podcast again. And Annie texted me, it was right before Thanksgiving. And she's like, hey, should you be podcasting again? What do you think? Should you join the network? And What If I'm Wrong was born. And it would not be here, and Haley would not be here, and we would not be doing this if Viral Jesus had not ended. So I just want to say this to you. There are seasons to everything in life. You are seed. So many times in scripture, God uses seasons as metaphors. And you may be looking at something and thinking, oh, I was wrong. But no, I want you to offer your brain this thought. Maybe I was faithful and it's complete. Have you ever had a necessary ending like that, Haley? Something that it was necessary to end. And maybe you didn't know it or feel it in the moment, but then as you go into the next chapter, you realize, oh, that ending also, just like the beginning was necessary, the ending was necessary.
Yeah. Yeah. I wouldn't say mine is necessarily super spiritual, but what comes to mind, what comes to mind for me is, so growing up, I skied, like I competitively raced. And
wait, hold on. Do we even know? Have we just met? Why have you never told me this?
I don't know. Gotta keep things a mystery, I guess.
Well, I guess so. Like, what? You were competitive. Okay, you told me, oh, I ski.
Yeah.
But there's a difference between saying I ski and like I was a professional skier. You know what I mean? Like, what? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So I raced from, 10 years old maybe to, no, gosh, I don't know. It was before that, but my whole life,
Right.
I grew up skiing. That was my life. And started off on like, it's called a development team, and then tried out for race team, made it. For years, every weekend, we went up to the mountains because we lived in Southern California, not a prime location for skiing. So we would have to drive to the mountains every single weekend to train and race and all the things. And eventually it got to a point where my parents kind of said, like, hey, we either fully commit and you take this more seriously and pursue like skiing very competitively, and we move to the mountains full time, or you kind of just do this as a leisurely thing. And I decided that I didn't want to pursue it competitively, and decided to do it just as a fun thing. And I don't know, it was hard because skiing at this point in my life, that was my identity. Like,
Yeah.
I was young, I did it every weekend. Kids at my school knew she was the skier. She leaves every Friday to go ski. Like, that was my identity. So it was a hard ending, but when I let go of that, I got to ski for fun. I
Mm.
actually got to coach like little kids, and it just became, the pressure was off, and it was so fun and so sweet. And so that was kind of like a necessary ending in my life.
Okay. So much of What If I'm Wrong is about this idea. And here, I didn't mean to get into all this, but I just want to say this to you because I know the person listening can relate. I feel like as a culture, we have lost something when we attach to our passions. We're going to talk about passion all month and purpose. When we attach to our passion some form of competition or
Yeah.
monetary gain. It's
Yep.
like you're not a writer unless people are paying you to write, or you're not a
Totally.
singer unless you're booking gigs, or you're not a skier unless you're winning races, or you're doing it competitively. And I think that that's a danger to us because then everything always has to be bigger and better than somebody else. And I can measure how I'm better than somebody else in order to prove that like this is part of what makes me who I am. And as children, we don't do that. And then we become adults and people are like, cute hobby.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Cute hobby, but
Yes.
like, are you going to make money from that? And it's
Right.
like, man, I just want to tell you guys, I when I started my newsletter, this is why I started the newsletter Friday Night Light. And it costs me money. I think Haley, you just upped our subscription. I'm paying
Yeah.
like $150 a month I pay to send
Yeah.
things to you. I don't make any money from that. And I know it's like one of the best things I do to glorify God
Mm.
is like, I just had this moment where I said, is my dream to sell books or is my dream to be a writer? And if my dream is to be a writer, who cares if I never sell another book?
Mm.
If my dream is to encourage people through the written word, that's really my passion. And so, man, we're going to talk about purpose all month because that's exactly what the theme is of my book, What If I'm Wrong? But I just think this is the perfect time to ask yourself, what are you passionate about? And I might change your opinion of what passionate means in a
Mm.
second. But God, what are you calling me to? What is my purpose? This is the perfect time for you to ask yourself those questions. And I hope my book can be a guide with you through that experience. Okay, I know you have some great submissions today, but before we get to that, let's define the term. Remember, for this segment, I am going to tell you a word and its actual definition. And I want you to ask yourself how knowing the actual definition may change how you see your relationship with that word. Okay, here we go. Today's term is passion. Passion. So, this is going to blow your mind if you've never heard me say this before. People often say, like, oh, I'm doing this because I'm passionate about it, or oh, God called me this and I'm passionate about it. Okay. The definition of passion is to suffer.
Hmm.
Passion, my friend. And I really believe we have to raise an entire generation of young people to know what passion means. Passion is not what we do because we are experiencing so many affirmations and resources and accolades and open doors. Passion is what you can't stop doing despite not getting any of those things. Passion is what you are willing to suffer for and through. And when you can find that piece of your life that you're like, man, let me give you an example. I had a student, she was a film student. She was very good. And I just remember her sitting in my office on the couch one day and she was like, I'm going to move to LA and I'm going to make film. And she said, either I'm going to live in a van and live in LA and make films, or I'm going to live in a high-rise mansion and live in LA and make films. All I know is I am going to make films. That's passion.
Mm.
And so I really think that is something the devil can't put out. When you discover what it is you are willing to suffer for and through, when you understand that your life is seed and there will be seasons of growth and harvest and plenty and reaping and seasons of burial and darkness and silence, but I am willing to suffer for and through this thing because it matters that much to me. I am telling you, you have just become a person the devil doesn't know what to do with. That's why they call it, by the way, the passion of Christ. Humanity was something Christ was willing to suffer for and through. And so I want you, as we go through this month together, as you go through the book, that's my goal, is for you to find that thing. Haley, are you still skiing?
I do, yeah.
Okay. Man, I don't know why I'm feeling very emotional today. But that's so beautiful, and like, that's what I want you to find that thing. That you're not doing it to win, and you're not doing it to be better, and you're not doing it to be famous, and you're not doing it to make money or to have somebody say, well done. You're doing it because you can't not do it.
Yeah.
That's your passion. And I would say that's your purpose. All right, Haley, what do you got for us? We have some submissions today.
Yes, we do. Okay, you ready for this?
And they're in this theme, right? We're in purpose. Okay.
Yeah.
The theme of purpose and passion.
In the theme of purpose and passion. Okay, here we go. I've been feeling extremely lost in my life for a few years now. I keep coming up with all these random ideas of things I want to do with my life and fantasizing about them for a while before the next thing comes up and the cycle begins again. In 1 year, I've gone from dreaming of going back to school to study Italian and linguistics to become a translator, to wanting to get a job as a web developer in a big city, to looking at working as a park ranger. I regularly will Google different jobs and careers to see if anything interesting catches my attention. I feel like I've considered every little thing under the sun, but I still have yet to find my path. I feel as though I have no sense of who I am or what I want, and I'm starting to lose faith in my decision to make abilities. I'm so scared of ending up bored and miserable. I feel like whatever decision I make will have a huge impact on my life, and I'm terrified of making the wrong one. I also noticed that many of the things I want are very contradictory. For example, wanting to live in a big city, but also wanting to live in the peace and quiet of nature. I really don't know what to do, and I would love some wisdom from you guys.
So actually, first I want to say, I think this is really normal.
Yeah.
I think it's actually rare that people from childhood to adulthood know exactly what they want to do and they never deviate. I think that's rare. And I also, it's just so funny that we've been talking about seasons and all this before we even got to this submission, because I would say, like, because you pick something that you love right now, that doesn't mean that in 5 years or 10 years you can't do something else that you love. Because you live in a city when you're young, that doesn't mean that you can't find a farm to raise your kids on when you're old. And I just think sometimes young people, in my experience as somebody who has just mentored and been a professor in the classroom with young people for so long, I think sometimes they think that life is like one choice. And you're not going to keep living and growing and maturing. There are going to be seasons to your life. So the first thing I would say is, hey, kind of release yourself of the panic that if I pick this one thing, I can't go back to school. I love when somebody tells me at 50 years old, I'm going back to school. I just love that. It's like, you are doing it.
Yeah.
We have this one life, and I really think we need to be active participants in our own lives and let ourselves grow and evolve and try new things. I love when people who are, later in life are like, I'm doing this totally. My brother-in-law went back to school. I mean, he wasn't super old, but it was definitely, he felt very late because I think he would have been in his 30s and he went to law school.
Wow.
right? And he got a scholar. I mean, he's brilliant. He got a scholarship. It's gone amazing, and he's now working as a lawyer, and he loves it. It's like, and you know what? If he decides in 20 years or in 10 years, actually, you know what? I want to teach. He can do that too. So you don't have to stay as one thing, and I think that's important to know. And then the other thing I would say, if you're somebody, some of this I think really comes down to parenting. Whenever I have students that seem like they don't know what they want to do, I really think it's the responsibility of good parents to point kids in certain directions. Like, for example, I with my children, I have really sought places for them to explore what their gifts are.
Mm.
So, they've done singing lessons, and my daughter's in art lessons, and then I take them to track practice, and my sons are in karate, and they might try songwriting. Like, I want them to be exposed to as many things as possible. And then when I see a gifting, if I see it, I say it. So I'll say, "Hey, London, you are really good at," she truly is. You are very good at art. You
Mm.
should keep doing that. Keep working, because your life, like when you're trying to figure out, oh, what am I called to do? It will often be an area where you are naturally gifted and skilled. There's just a natural aptitude for that thing. But I promise you also that then you've done work. People who are great don't wake up great. Nobody is
Mm.
born great. No one's a great writer. You're probably like a naturally gifted writer who then spent hours and hours and hours and hours writing, and now you're a great writer.
Mm.
And that's the truth of it is, I think parents have to help direct children in what things they're naturally gifted in. And if you didn't have parents like that, and I know some of us don't, I would say, what are your friends and family saying to you? Have you, like, let me ask you, Haley, has anybody ever said to you, like, oh, have you noticed that you're good at that?
Mm. Yeah, I feel like I've definitely had like encouragement in certain areas of like, oh, hey, you're really great with this.
Yeah.
And I do think that's really helpful. When someone points that out and encourages you in that way, it like kind of makes you alert to that. And I
Yes.
do think that's so helpful.
So I would say, what have people said to you in the past?
Mm, yeah.
So pay attention to that. I love this. Karen Swallow Prior, on Viral Jesus, when we did that show, she said to me, and I just never forgot it. I was like, oh my goodness, this is so good. She said, a calling comes from the outside.
Mm,
To be called quite literally means somebody else on the outside of you, external, says, pay attention here. You should do this. Look at this. Opens a door for you. Something, there's like a prodding and a leading that comes from the outside. And so I think pay attention to what other people have said to you, and pointed out to you where your natural giftings are. And then remember that thing, passion. What would you do for free?
mm, yeah.
I would have taught, and basically did. My first job in higher education, I think my first contract was like $40,000 a year. I mean, just
Mm,
low pay, especially when you
yeah.
consider I had to go to school for 10 years. I mean, the student loans
Yeah.
I have is ridiculous. I basically did it for free, and I loved it.
Mm.
And I'd go in my car after work and cry, and I'd just say, God, I'm so lucky to do this. Figure out what that thing is for you that you're willing to suffer for and through. And I think that's where your passion is. And then it's okay, friend, if 5 years later or 10 years later, that thing changes.
All right. Are you ready for submission number 2?
Is there a second one?
There's a second one.
All right.
Okay. So it says, one of the main reasons I want a kid is because when I picture the next few decades without one, it feels so bleak.
Hmm.
Yes, I could save all my money and go on nice trips abroad, but so what? It all just feels a bit empty. I always imagine that having a child will give me a sense of purpose, a reason to get up in the morning. The holidays, although more stressful, will also be more rewarding as a little family of 3. Any parents reading this, do you feel a sense of purpose after having a child? I don't know whether this sense of emptiness is just depression, and it's completely possible if I have a child, I'll just feel the same, but with added stress. Am I wrong about whether having kids will give me purpose?
Mm. I mean, I think all relationships give us purpose.
Hmm.
right? Because this is true of evolutionary biology and Christianity. You are wired to exist in relationship with other people,
Yeah.
period. They have studied this. The greatest contributor to your happiness, outranking how much money you make, outranking the job you have, outranking how much sex you're having, the greatest contributor to your happiness is your relationships with other people. So I would say, yes, the parent-child relationship, also the daughter-parent relationship, also the friend-to-friend relationship, the church community relationship, the servant-servee relationship. Relationships are what give us meaning. And I am hesitant, of course, to ever say like anybody's ultimate person or purpose is in parenthood, because that is not going to be in the cards for every person. There are legitimate reasons that some people can't have kids, or maybe they don't want to have kids. That doesn't mean that you can't live a very full relational life, right? That said, for those of us who choose to be parents, man, I would say for me, that does become, as far as like my hierarchy of how I view my life, I feel like there's a responsibility on me to, I mean, I guess this is just what Christ would say, right? To serve and not be served.
Yeah.
There becomes a great responsibility to make sure I do the best I can do for this child. And so if you are ready for great responsibility, there will also be great reward. And so, yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a parent, so I probably can't speak to it in the same way, but I don't know. I just think of how much purpose you can get from living in community, like how much other
Yes.
people,
Yes.
can make you feel purposeful. And I mean, even like Adam or God created Eve so that Adam could have a companion, and it was
Right.
good. There is a reason that we need other people. We were created to live in community. So
Yeah.
I don't think that it's bad. I wouldn't put your purpose necessarily in having a child. Your purpose is in
Right. Is in
Christ.
God. Yes.
Yes, but I would assume, kind of like what Heather said, that it would be extremely rewarding.
Yeah, I think it's extremely rewarding. And I also accept that not everybody feels called to it. And I don't
Yeah.
think that there should be any, I mean, I definitely don't think we should have people being parents who didn't want to be parents. So if you don't want to do that, I would not let anybody force you into doing something that you're like, I just don't think that sounds like something I want to do. Okay. So then serve your church. You know what I mean? Like find other ways that you can get plugged in relationally and in community. I think that is super. I think it's relationships that are super rewarding. And of course, there is a gifting to parents, and there is a gifting to daughters, and there is a gifting to sisters, and there's a gifting to church members. Every relationship that we choose to pour ourselves into offers us, I think, great reward.
Yeah.
I want to close every episode with a segment I call Day in the Bible. And this is where I share something I have learned in Bible study with you that will beg the question, what if I'm wrong about how I have been reading or thinking or explaining this Bible passage or this idea in scripture? And today we are going to look at the gospel writer Luke. So Luke is the most prolific author of the New Testament. And I know what you're thinking. Wait, no, it's Paul. Actually, no. Paul writes about 23% of the New Testament, but Luke writes 27% of the New Testament. We don't know much about Luke, but we do know that Luke is a close friend to Paul. And this is what I want to hit on. He's a physician. Luke is a physician, which may be why his gospel focuses so much on the healing ministry of Jesus. Luke is also the only Gentile to write any part of the New Testament. And so here is why I wanted to share this with you in Day in the Bible and how it goes with our theme, What If I'm Wrong? Are you ready? The person that God entrusted to writing the majority of your New Testament, the person that God called to tell us the majority of what we know about who Jesus was, or what parables he told, or what types of miracles he did. The person responsible for giving us 27% of the New Testament is not Luke the pastor or Luke the prophet. It is Luke the physician. An otherwise ordinary person. A job that you would not deem as anything that like is supernatural or spiritual. And God says, that's who I want to tell my story, the majority of my story. Wow. That to me, I'm telling you, I always pay attention to any type of communication choices that are made in the Bible or spiritually or by Jesus. And I just want you, I don't know what you think your purpose is. Maybe like your job, right, is a nurse or a teacher or a social worker or a podcaster or an administrative assistant. And maybe you don't see yourself as worthy of co-laboring with Christ or doing ministry or holding a Bible study or leading out in prayer. Like when people say, hey, anybody want to pray? Like you would never raise your hand because you say, oh, that's not me. That's reserved for like really spiritual people like pastors and prophets and speakers. But man, I'm just going to tell you, friend, one thing God shows us over and over and over again is that God chooses the most unlikely, improbable, impossible people to do his work. Also, I want you to know this, the person that told us the most about Jesus and who he is and what he did and wrote the most of the New Testament is Luke the Gentile. He was outside of what was perceived at that time before Christ to be the covenant. And that's who God chooses. And so I just want you to know, God may be calling you right now to, maybe he's just calling you to deep prayer of intercession over your family or your work or your country or your neighborhood. Maybe he's calling you to write a blog, or maybe you've been sensing he's saying, I want you to lead a Bible. I want you to invite 2 people or 3 people over to your home and host them and just get in my word together. Maybe God is telling you to start your own podcast. Whatever it is in your life that you're looking at and God, you are that calling is coming from the outside and you're looking at your life and you're saying, surely God has somebody more equipped and more skilled and better with the scriptures and just more priestly like than me. Surely God has somebody better than me for this job. Friend, all I want to say to you today is, what if you're wrong? That's it for today's episode. Join us next week as we continue in our theme about passion. Haley, what are we talking about next week?
Okay, so next week we're going to be talking about what if your purpose changes over time?
And we kind of started that today.
We did. We kind of did.
Look at that. Look at that. Oh, I'm excited about that.
Yes, me too. And if you want us to go over your submissions, you can email me at whatifimwrongpod@gmail.com.
I'm Heather Thompson Day, and I'll see you next week.